Let's start off by getting your reaction to some interesting reports that have come out over the last week or so about Morgan Gibbs-White, who, of course, was strongly linked with a move to Man City earlier this summer. There was talk of Nottingham Forest valuing Gibbs-White at around £100 million, which City were not prepared to pay at the time. But it's since emerged that Gibbs-White now has a £60 million release clause in his Forest contract, which has been activated by Tottenham. Forest, though, are said to consider the Gibbs-White move to Forest to be off for now, whilst they consult their lawyers over potential legal action, as Forest believes Spurs made an illegal approach to the player and never granted him permission to talk to Spurs. Spurs are, however, still confident of getting this deal done. Now, I think from a Man City perspective, Stephen, it's come as a bit of a surprise, really, that Gibbs-White has this £60 million release clause when he was is valued, much higher earlier this summer. What are your thoughts on all this, Stephen? And do you think City could actually renew their interest in Gibbs-White at all this summer, or can this deal be considered dead and buried for City as they move on to, other priorities this summer?
I'll start with that bit first. I mean, I don't think it's impossible. I don't expect it, but football is a strange old game, and anything can happen at any moment. So, more fool the man who rules it out. Yeah, I mean, I expect City have sort of moved on from him overall. There were some rumours that it was Shirky or Gibbs White, and Guardiola chose Shirky, and you do wonder how much the fee paid into that. I mean, I think larger Shirky is a better number 10. So if it was option as a 10 of those two players, you understand why he's gone for Shirky, who is an absurdly gifted creator and a lot more akin to De Bruyne in terms of his overall output, in terms of creativity. Though Gibbs White, there was a shot of Guardiola talking to Gibbs White after the Forest game, on the pitch in the semi-finals, and you could tell he was having one of those chats, and it looked like those chats where it's like, oh yeah, yeah, I'll see you soon, mate, basically, and all but all but confirmed when that was happening at the time, and I sort of know semi-personally as well that Gibbs White was actually expecting a move to Man City to happen, and it just shows you how you know. Fickle things can be in football. They can move so quickly, and for whatever reason, he looks like he's set to join Spurs. I really like Gibbs White. I think he's a cracking player. I do wonder how much his potential transfer was tied to other potential departures as well. I know we just talked about him being, a 10 and a sort of him or Shirky, but I do think there was a world exists where it could have been Shirky and Gibbs White, but that might have coincided with maybe one of Gundogan or Bernardo Silva maybe stepping out the door a little bit earlier. Maybe if Kovacic had his future sorted out, it looks like he's just going to be here. We don't know, given he was injured during the Club World Cup. Maybe Bernardo Gundogan moved on. Maybe they would have pulled the trigger and gone for Gibbs White. But then you've got that issue with the fee. Now, City were quoted £100 million, and that is obviously absurd. He's nowhere near that. You do wonder what's going on with the release clause there. Was there some rumours about, it only activating at a certain date? But we can all be naive and act like, clubs don't know these things, but they do know. Like, there's no way his agent isn't going to get Man City to know that he's got a release clause that he can activate. And City, under Cheeky Briggerstein anyway, have been very good at activating release clauses. They love a release clause because it's an easy transfer, and they it gets you through the door nice and easily with very little kind of negotiation. So, yeah, maybe they didn't know. Maybe City didn't know, or maybe it's genuinely a case of that just enough players haven't left, and it does look like Bernardo is definitely going to stay. Kovacic, I presume, will. Gundogan, I felt he was going to Galatasaray, but it's going to be quiet on that front as well. Who knows? Maybe they're just on hold right now. Um, there is still, having said all that, a small possibility of Gibbs White becoming a City player. Forest and Spurs might have done the dirty work for City there. Maybe the release clause is out and up in the air now because for whatever reason. And if Gundogan moves on, and it turns out, Kovacic's future's up in the air a little bit after his injury, they might still go in for Gibbs White, given the fact that they need homegrown players. But I don't really know. It is a mad mess, but he's a very talented player. And personally, I wouldn't say no, but I'm just sort of, I think we've probably made our decision already.
Yeah, it was been suggested by journalist Fabrizio Romano that City decided against moving for Gibbs White early this summer. In his words, they changed the transfer strategy, so they didn't want to spend big on just one creative midfielder. They would
Yeah.
prefer to strengthen in multiple positions, and I guess that's a similar reason as well why they moved on from Florian Wirtz as well, who of course has now joined Liverpool. So in hindsight, that probably does make sense, doesn't it? That they've strengthened in multiple areas rather than just putting all their eggs in one basket and spending big on one player.
Yeah, I mean, but you look at the the combination of the deals, the price is roughly the Verts fee for the free players that they've signed. So there's no denying it's a really good deal for Shirky. Shirky is one of the highest volume creators in European football, and he's only 21 years old. He could be a truly special footballer. Gibbs-White is excellent, but I think Shirky could be special. So I understand the logic there. And even then, even £60 million, and we talk about that being reasonable, and it is in 2025, but it's a lot of money, and Shirky is just over half of that. So look, I think Shirky was about 35 million, could rise to about 40, but that's vastly less, and there's still an awful lot of money in the pot there for potential reinforcements in other positions for City as well. So it is understandable if City have just chosen Shirky because it's probably a better deal in every single way. But there is the homegrown thing, so that's something that we can't ignore. But yeah, it probably is just that they've chosen the cheaper option.